Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, back with another video for my 2020 Christmas card series. This is part of Waffle Flowers' October release, and I have this really cute holiday cheese stamp set that this is not something I'd ever think of for Christmas, and it's the cutest little set. So I have all these images, and I'm going to stamp them onto some watercolor paper, and I'm going to use Ranger's Jet Black Archival ink. I'm really liking this ink. I'd used it when I did the Stamptember video for the Tim Holtz release. And yeah, I'm just liking it. There's so many good black inks out there, and this one's just a current favorite for watercoloring. Anyway, this is not Copic marker friendly, just FYI. But anywho, stamp the images a couple of times onto the watercolor paper, and then after I removed the images from my MISTI, there's a bunch of little sentiments in the set that you can use to stamp on the little sign that the mouse is holding. So I stamped the cheese to share sign. I thought that was cute. And then for the watercoloring, I am using my Prima ODYSSEY palette. And for this first little bit, this is just real time. I get a lot of comments about that asking, you know, how long does it take me to make my cards? How long did this take? How long did that take? Honestly, I don't time myself, really. I do this as a job, but I don't really time like every aspect of, you know, how long this element took, how long this card took. It just is what it is. And for me, it's therapy. So, but also with the speed of coloring, I get a lot of comments like, oh, you color so quickly. I wish I could color as fast. Yeah, I wish I could color as fast. Some days I wish I could color as fast as I show in videos. Like here, I'm starting to speed it up a bit, and then I'm going to speed it up a lot. But I take my time depending on what I'm doing. Sometimes, you know, I can go quick and messy and fast, and it's great. And other times, you know, like with something like this, I take my time and I color it in. I'm going to just do a basic, simple watercoloring first, basically just coloring everything in, nothing too fancy. But then I'm going to go in and just add another layer here and there to add, you know, that shading and that depth to really give everything just something more. Like with this little coffee mug, I had mixed the blue and the orange together to get a more muted blue, and that's the first layer I'd painted on, but then I wasn't super happy with it, so I went in with more of just the blue itself, just to give it more of that blue shade. I was thinking those tin camping cups, like looking at this, and when I add the splatter, it really kind of brings it out. That, yeah, it just, I don't know, it really stuck in my mind with that. So anywho, went along and just kept painting everything. I also took a little bit more time doing this because I didn't do my standard, like I usually heat emboss. You know, I stamp my images and then I heat emboss them to give me that raised edge so I can go a little faster. Since I only stamped these images with the Archival ink, I didn't do any heat embossing. So that's why I kind of jump around all over the place to give each little area a chance to dry a bit so that you don't have watercolors just bleeding into each other and a hot mess. So I kept going along, and then I start adding in I only added in a second layer. I didn't do, you know, multiple layers. I just did a second layer just to give, like, you know, those wheels of cheese, that depth and definition, and the little mouse I had given a second layer, the cup, etc. So I kept going along and painting everything, and I used this ODYSSEY palette for just about everything other than the little bees for their little black stripes. I pulled out my Prima Classics palette to give them their little black stripes. And then I actually ended up using the little aqua shade from the Classics palette as well. I watered it down heavily. So it was more water than color, so that I could add just that little bit of something to like the wings and to the white parts of the little Santa hats. So once everything was painted and completely dry, I am going to use the coordinating wafer dies, and I'm going to die cut all of these. So I'm going to tape all of these wafer dies in place with just little bits of washi tape so that nothing moves when I run this through my die cut machine. And I'm going to die cut all my images. And then I also die cut a piece of Neenah Desert Storm cardstock using one of Simon Says Stamp's nested slimline rectangle wafer dies. And I pulled out my Waffle Flower Water Medium Matte Fist. I could have done my watercoloring on this too. afterthought as always. I generally like working on this with everything because the silicone, it kind of just grips the cardstock. So that's why I love ink blending on it. But I also like it for like watercoloring, stamping, all the things. Like, I really, really love this water media mat. Anyway, I'm using the Desert Storm cardstock. I've shown this in other videos. There is something about blending Distress Oxide inks on Desert Storm cardstock that is just magic. I don't know what it is, but the Desert Storm cardstock it's not coated. It doesn't have a coating, but it has such a smooth finish that the inks just kind of glide on it. And because they're oxide inks and they have that pigment, they sit on top of the cardstock a bit more. And because of the Desert Storm, like the craft color, it mutes the colors of the oxides just a bit. Like it's fun to try. I highly recommend. If you've got oxide inks, if you don't, you should get some. But if you got some and you have this cardstock, do some ink blending on it. Like I think will be pleasantly surprised with the results. I'm loving it. So I blended on Speckled Egg, Faded Jeans, and Chipped Sapphire. I kind of was thinking like wintertime sky sort of a thing. Plus I wanted to bring in that blue because I really like that blue I got on the little mug when I was watercoloring it. And so I put the background and all the images into my splat box. I'm going to splatter everything with just my Amsterdam white liquid paint and heavily splatter. I want splatter everywhere. Tons of it. It is a winter scene. Wintertime and Christmas cards and holiday cards and winter theme cards are when I can just add 10 times more splatter than I normally do because it snows. So I splattered heavily, especially on the background, but I splattered all the images as well because, I'm just thinking of like the snow falling, that sort of thing. So I went along and splattered everything, and this is what I mean by that cup. Once the splatter hits it, it's like, it really does look like those little tin camping cups. So anyway, splattered everything, let this all completely dry because you don't want the splatter smearing anywhere. So after it was all dry, my card base is just some heavyweight white cardstock that I cut to 7 inches by 8.5. And I'm scoring it at 3.5 with my Teflon bone folder. So these will be 3.5 by 8.5 inch cards. I ended up making 2 of these. Off camera, I had stamped and watercolored another set, and then I ink blended another piece because why not do more than one, especially when it comes to like Christmas cards and stuff. I can never have enough. So once I've got everything ready to go, I can start assembling it all. So my background is dry, all that splatter is dry. So I'm going to adhere that to my card base, and then I'm going to start adhering these main images here just with craft tacky glue. I decided not to do any like foam tape or anything like that. I've got all the watercolor, I've got the background blended and the splatter. I thought that was just more than enough. So keeping it a little bit simpler, these are super easy to mail as well then. So adhered all my little images, popped the little mouse on top of the pile of cheese. And then I'm going to put the sentiments. I white heat embossed more sentiments from the set just onto some red cardstock and then trimmed it down with my paper trimmer. So I adhered the Merry Christmas to the front, and then on the inside of the card I have Holiday Cheers from me to you, and then that mug. And once I've got that adhered into place, that actually just finishes off the card technically. I wasn't going to add any bling or anything, but I forgot in this whole process to paint the inside of the mouse's ear. It just completely escaped me until I was nearly completely done. I was looking at it and I was like, wait a minute, why is that still white? So mixed up a little bit of the white and the red, got a little pink, painted that on his ear. And then I pulled out my Sakura Black Glaze pen, and I just dotted that just on the little eyes of each of the little characters and onto the little mouse's nose. It just gives it that little extra something. It's a very subtle touch, but I like it. I also used my white gel pen on his nose just to add the highlight back in. And then while I was at that, I decided to pull out, this is my oldie but goodie. This is the Stardust Sparkle Pen, also by Sakura. This is the OG way to add sparkle to your cards. Like, this was all we had back in the day. There wasn't anything else, unless you're going to do glue and glitter. There was nothing else on the market back in the day, but now we've got a million options. But yeah, added just a little bit of sparkle, nothing too crazy. I'll turn the flashlight on my phone so you guys can kind of get an idea of the sparkle. It's kind of hard to show here on camera. And then I also used, these are grocery bag slimline envelopes from Simon Says Stamp. I stamped the little mouse with the Merry Xmas sentiment onto the envelope just to tie it all together. And that's going to finish off my card. Like I'd mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is part of the Waffle Flower October release. So I will have a link to their blog in my blog post, linked directly below the video, because there's a bunch of people hopping as well. Designers with fabulous cards and tons of inspiration with so many other sets that were released. So you can check that out below if you are interested. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye!